Well, first of all, we clearly see that they have virtually no reserves, because in a normal situation, if Russians would be planning according to their own books and doctrines, they would have substantial reserves placed in the area, so that they can obviously within a few days come and start to engage in some sort of operations. But that's partly happening. So that we do see some of the reserves coming up. We do see some of the artillery fire in the region. We do see some troops moving back and forth, but it's not substantial enough to create a significant pressure. A lot of the reserves are coming with the conscripts, which means that these are young civilian men which were conscripted a year or 2 years ago or a year and a half ago with literally no battlefield experience and very little training. And also we see the very interesting phenomena is that the elite groups of Russian troops which were sent to the area, they're actually leaving and they withdraw from the fight for whatever reason.
And in terms of its military significance, what is it for Ukraine then?
Well, there's a number of we can always consider military operations from various perspectives. So one of them is operational, and that's very straightforward. We see that such operation must distract the Russians from the operations in Ukraine. It must divert the forces, and they have to pull, because of the lack of reserves, they have to pull the forces from the other areas, which was actually most likely the main objective of this operation, and from Ukraine, and essentially pull the forces from Ukraine so they fail in Ukraine or less successful in Ukraine or failing in Ukraine completely, and then try to liberate their own territory. So basically that's the main meaning of this in operational perspective. But from strategic perspective, of course, there's lots of other side effects. But basically the world sees, and the Russian government should see, that their army is actually incapable of doing the full-scale war of that size, that they have committed pretty much everything they had into Ukraine, and they cannot protect themselves from anywhere else, and that must push them to reconsider the chances of them in Ukraine and generally their attitude to this war. Because so far they've been projecting this image that they can do whatever they like. And yes, there's been a regional setback in 2022 and some in 2023, but now they kind of bumped up. They grew the army, they mobilized and trained people, and now they are successful, and they can essentially succeed in Ukraine. And that's very difficult in terms of negotiation for future negotiations, if they're going to happen at all. But it's tough because they constantly been projecting into the world that idea that Russian army is strong and big and so on. It's not the case. We clearly see that was a facade, and then from the sides there's not much left. So Russian government may see it actually itself, because I'm sure that many of them didn't know that to the detail, and then reconsider their plans and reconsider their future, ambitions, let's put it this way.
And when it comes to the captured areas by Ukrainian troops, what will happen to them? Will Ukraine use them as potential bargaining chips, or what could potentially happen to those areas?
Ukrainian leadership, military leadership, they are quite, startlingly silent about the operation. So only yesterday Zelensky confirmed that our troops are fighting in Russia, but actually, of course, the whole analytical community knew about that because of the massive evidence and so on. But generally speaking, Ukraine is official Ukraine, official Kiev is very silent about the objectives, because they don't want to oversell it like they oversold. Most likely, they don't want to oversell it like they oversold the counteroffensive in 2023. The whole world was talking about that. Then something didn't go according to the plan, and then there were lots of difficulties with this. So right now, of course, this is a very risky operation, and that's why Ukrainian government is silent, and they will explain it later. But clearly, I haven't seen any indications at all in Ukrainian strategy ever to hold any Russian territory indefinitely.
Right.
So we don't need Russian land. What we do need is that Russia needs to fail on ours, like fail the war on ours. And
Andriy,
that's what we're trying to achieve. Yeah.
Andriy Zagorodnyuk, thank you so much for being with us on Newsday.